Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Drogs, Fully Painted Miniatures, and today I'm going to be introducing a new game that I'm very excited about, called League of Dungeoneers. Here's the main book for it. Decent size. Keep knocking my guy over. This game came out about a year and a half ago. So I'm backed the second printing of it on GameFound, and it came with the expansion. So I got that too. Comes with some new rules and stuff called the False Prophet. It's a pretty hefty game. There's a lot of books. This is not all of them. There's more than this. That is most of them though. So I spent probably 15-20 hours reading and just like punching out cardboard pieces and like getting it set up just to get to this point. But this is the game that I'm probably going to be making videos of for the foreseeable future. At least the rest of the year. I'm very excited about it. It's kind of like a solo, I'm going to play it as like a solo D&D experience. I think it's originally based off of, it's influenced, let's say, from the original Hero Quest. So if you played the original Hero Quest, that type of dungeon crawling, then inspired some sequels, and you got Advanced Hero Quest and then Warhammer Quest after that, which was Hero Quest with a lot of advanced rules to create these kind of longer campaigns. And this is kind of like a super steroided version of that. So you can't... Oh, let me move my characters out of the way real quick. Get an idea. So this is actually the world map that comes with the game. And also, I have a... this is the board version. It's a little easier to read. It also comes with a like neoprene matte version. So this is the game world, essentially. You have a capital city in the center here, and it's a hex crawl. And you have roads and wilderness, and there's lots of little cities. There's even like dwarven cities. Down here you have a desert. This is your high level area for higher level dungeons when you get to, or like your end game, basically. And then there's all these little places that you basically have your party, you wander around the world, you go to cities and towns, you can do stuff in the towns, and then you generate quests, and then you go to the wherever the quest gets generated in that world, and you dungeon dive. And this game is very replayable. I believe there's 5 to 7 campaigns. Each campaign has multiple missions, multiple dungeons you got to go through. Most of them are, I would say 4 to 7 missions for those campaigns. There's at least 5 of those. And then there's 36 individual missions. So that's well over, I would say it's about 60 different dungeons that the game has generated that you can play through. And they are randomly generated. And you can play them at basically any level. Oh, and then that doesn't count the end game stuff either. So there's probably more like 70 something. So for example, you can do a random quest, say, and go here at level 1 and have it be undead, and you're going to fight like rats and skeletons. Or you can generate the same quest when you're level 8, and you'll be going up against like ogres and other things, orcs and high-level orcs and goblins and stuff like that. There's also a ton of character variety. Let's see if I can find my characters yet. So they actually have unique, and this game uses standees. So these are my standees that I'm going to use for my characters. This is a dwarf war priest, an half ogre barbarian. These are double-sided, so they show their front and their back. Pretty cool. An elven ranger. and a halfling thief. So I'm kind of going just very classic, traditional party, I guess. Could have. But one of the cool things with the expansion is that it created advanced classes. So you level from 1 to 10 with your character, and at level 5 you can pick an alternate class. So with their standees, they don't have standees for the alternate classes. But like, for example, my war priest can either go at level 5, he can go lean more heavily into the melee side and become a witch hunter, or he can lean more heavily into the holy priest side and become a cleric and get more advanced magic. So you have that option basically with every class to kind of specialize in one of the two directions. So the standees for the heroes do not have, they only have it for the base classes, but they do have a male and female version of each. So the amount of standees is actually the same as the amount of character and class combinations. And that's what you end up with. So there are 10 races you can pick. And then there are 10 classes that you can pick, each of which specialize into one of 2 different specialties. So there's effectively, 200, let's say, except the half ogre. The half ogre doesn't get access to a lot of the classes. So he only can be 6. So that would be 184 different race class combinations that you can play in this game. And you play with 4 characters. So that creates a lot of replayability, because you can replay these missions over and over and over. Oh, that was cool. Look at that. Dwarf Knight. Might play him at some point. Yeah. And here's a duck folk alchemist. It's another cool one. Yeah, so you have the classic races. You have human, elf, dwarf, halfling, and then, I'm sorry, there's six races, not 10. So 6 races, 20 classes. So 120 minus 14, so 106 different character options. Still quite a lot, considering you're picking 4 at a time, and there's no reason why you couldn't pick two of the, you want to have 2 berserkers or barbarians, at the same time. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, so I just wanted to show you the basics of the world. This game is very, very cool. I'm very excited because I can basically play this forever and play a bunch of different combinations. So my party that I'm picking, did I forget to explain something? I don't know. Oh yeah. So in the expansion, this game's been out for a little while, like I was saying earlier, and you have your 4 characters. You go throughout the world and do that. So I wanted to mention the new things that are in the expansion. If you've heard of this game before and it just didn't quite appeal to you, or it wasn't quite complex enough or whatever, I wanted to just go over what the expansion offers, because there have been some other playthroughs for this going back a year or more. So the big thing is the classes. So in the original game, you did not have that specialization class. And those classes give you usually like an initial perk. When you get that class, they give you cheaper level ups for different stats, depending which direction you go, so that you can get certain stats or skills a little bit cheaper. So that's nice. And they often have unique perks as well. So, for example, if you play a rogue, most people choose the thief over the rogue class out of the 2, thieving classes. The thief tends to offer a lot more utility because it has the ability to draw true treasure cards and then pick one, which is very, very, very useful. Well, they added a secondary class to the rogue called the Grave Robber that allows him to do the same thing. So you don't get it from level 1, you have to wait till at least level 5 to get it, but it does make the rogue more viable if that's the direction you want to take. So the rogue class is kind of jack of all trades, and so you can take him and make him a little bit more thievy, or you can take him and make him a little bit more fightery, both of which look pretty cool. So that's one of the big features. It also offers a new campaign, a big new campaign, and it offers an entirely new opponent that you go up against. So you do roll at different times to see what opponents you face. They have different factions. You can fight bandits, you can fight orcs and goblins, undead, reptiles, dark elves, and I'm missing one. I don't know, something else. Beasts. Yeah, that's the big one. Beasts. And then this campaign offers Ratkin, which is similar to like Skaven, if you've ever played Warhammer. Which is really cool. And they have all these new tiles, and they introduced mines and underground caverns. So some of these dungeons, which typically involve a lot of Ratkin, are in mines, and you can go in there. They're going to be set up a little differently. There are a lot more large open rooms, a lot less doors, a lot less traps. But enemies kind of spill in from other rooms, and you can actually find like nodes of minerals that you can mine, and you can find underground mushrooms that have like healing effects and stuff like that. And they introduce crafting, so you can actually craft, if you learn the correct talents, you can actually craft your own equipment, which is really, really cool. I'm not going to be doing that in this campaign because this game is very complicated. I'm trying to keep it simple for myself for this first playthrough. From what I've heard, this game can be pretty hard, and it's not uncommon at all for parties to wipe and completely die out. So I'm going to try to make it to max level and to the end game, but if I wipe, I wipe, and then I start a new game. It also offers the ability in all dungeons that now you can have certain traps that will collapse through the floor, and you will fall into a catacomb, basically a sub-level beneath the dungeon that you're in. And that will be filled typically with shroom folk, which are mushroom monsters, which are also new in this game. So that's pretty cool. There's also some new equipment that they've added. I don't know if there's any new weapons, but there's definitely new armor. They added like studded leather armors. They added some hide armors that you can craft as well. What else did they add that's new? A bunch of new environmental cards. So as you travel throughout the wilderness, every once in a while you trigger an event. And you trigger a different event depending on whether you're on the road or actually like in the trees in the wilderness. And they added a lot more variety to those. And they also changed up some of the dungeon events, I believe. Although I'm not sure how. And they added new items. So there's new treasure cards as well. That's most of the changes, I would say. But yeah, so I'm going to be... Oh, and obviously they added 2 new races. They added prestige classes. They also added 2 completely new classes in Druid and Knight. I'm not using either of those. I am using the Half Ogre, which is a new race. He's pretty cool. He gets much higher stats than any of the other races, but he has a stupid effect where basically every turn you roll a d6, and if I get a 6, he basically loses his entire turn. He just stands there and does nothing. But in exchange, he's kind of like a superhero. All right, so let's go through my characters. I'll explain them all. I'll start with the Half Ogre since I was already talking about him. His name is Rothgar, and he is a barbarian. Really cool artwork. I love the artwork on that guy. I already rolled up all my stats. I'm not going to show you character creation. It honestly took me like 3 or 4 hours just to create all these characters, and you don't want to see that on video. I will say I did get really good rolls for the most part for stats and whatnot. Hrothgar had great rolls. Henrik had great rolls. Alsace had kind of bad rolls, but he did get, he still got a 10 for one of his stats, and he got a great hit point roll, a perfect hit point roll, actually. And my halfling got pretty good rolls, too. They all had great hit point rolls. So my hit points are definitely higher than what you would typically get. All right, so he's going to start with 50 strength. You do get to assign points and do things like that. So you do have quite a bit to say over this. So he's level 1 barbarian. He starts with 50 strength, which gives him a damage bonus of 1. So he adds an additional damage to all of his attacks. He also has a constitution of 52, which is also really high, which gives him a natural armor of 1. So he subtracts 1 damage from all attacks that he takes. His dexterity is 40. He has 4 movement speed, and all characters have 4 movement speed. He has a wisdom of 21, which is pretty low, but he's a half ogre. That's expected. And he has a resistance of resolution of, it's kind of like your mental fortitude, of bravery, really, of 50, which is really high. And his hit points is 22, which is super high for a level 1 character. And then his weapon classes, these are based on your strength, and it's what weapons you can equip one-handed and two-handed. So the stronger you are, the heavier weapons you can wield. And it also gives you damage bonus, and then also it affects your encumbrance level. So the main thing affecting armor, there's no stat requirements from armor. It's just you have to be able to afford it, and you have to be able to be strong enough to hold the weight. Because if you stack up a ton of armor and then you're overweight, your character can't move. So that's the point strength. Constitution can get you natural armor, and it's good for saving rolls against like disease and poison, things like that. Dexterity is good for it determines a lot of your starting stats. So you want a high dex when you create your character, but as far as increasing it later on, I think you just use it for certain skill checks, like climbing ropes and getting out of the way of certain traps and things like that. Wisdom is also responsible for like the other half of your skill checks when you're during character creation, and it's mainly for like mages and wizards and stuff like that. So this determines your mana if you're a wizard, for example. Not particularly useful for half ogre. And then this is your, I'm going to say resolution. Resolve. That's what it is your resolve. It's your bravery. So when you get fear checks and morale checks and things like that, you check it against this. And this also determines your party's overall morale score. Hit points, that determines how many hits you can take before you die. Then we get to our skill points. Let me hold this up so you can read it a little bit better. So this is so as you see, all your combat skills. These first 4 skills are all based on dex. The next 4 are all based on wisdom. And then 1 is based on constitution. So this is your combat score. Your combat score. And this is your chance to hit. So everything in this game is a D100. So his base chance to hit is 55 out of 100. So he has a 55% chance of hitting his opponent, which actually is pretty high. I made sure to focus on my combat skills for all of my characters. I don't want to miss a lot. And I've heard that's a problem for a lot of people if you don't prioritize that right off the bat. He has a range skill of 40. So he has a 40% chance for a range attack. So he's not an archer or anything, he's a barbarian, but I can give him throwing weapons. I can give him a throwing axe, for example, which might be really fun. He also has a 45 dodge. So each character in melee or ranged once per turn, I believe, or battle. No, it's per battle. So every fight, so if you get in a fight with 3 goblins, the battle is considered until all the goblins are dead. But once per battle, you may dodge an attack that has hit you. So they hit you, then you roll to dodge. You successful, you can choose to or not. Whether you're successful or not, you don't get the option to do it again. Then his chance to pick locks. This is also your skill that you use to disarm traps. Is a 20, so 20%, so not very good. Barter, wisdom, that gives you better buying and selling prices. He has a 6% chance, so basically nothing. If you roll a 1 through 5, that's a critical, and you succeed automatically. So it's basically the same as having a 0. His heal is at 11%. That's also garbage. Alchemy is 0. So garbage. And his perception is 16. So that's also really, really bad. So that's his ability to detect traps and things like that coming his way. Although he has a foraging skill of 37. So pretty decent. So basically this guy has no utility. He's just pure combat. This guy, you just throw him at your enemies, and because he's an ogre, yeah, he may miss a turn because of that Stupefy, but you can actually cancel that out with a Berserker's Frenzy ability. If he's in Frenzy, Stupefy can't work. And on top of that, he's got such a high hit points and natural armor that it's okay. So he's my primary tank and damage dealer. That's his job. He's going to rush right into the middle of the enemy and just try to kill everything. For equipment, he's starting with a battle axe. Does 1d10 plus 1 damage, which for him would be plus 2. I should write that down. Which is a class 4 and then it has armor piercing of 1. All right, and then for armor, he has nothing for his head or legs or arms, but he is wearing a leather vest. So if he gets hit in the chest, he gets an additional 3 points of defense, which cancels out damage. So if he gets hit in the chest, between the leather vest and his natural armor, he'll ignore the first 4 points of damage. Also, being an ogre, they're too dumb to be afraid, so they get an additional 2 points of sanity. He starts with 10. All other races always start with 8. And then he's also carrying a torch. He has 30 coins. Oh yeah, and so this is the encumbrance I was talking about here. On the bottom, he has 16 encumbrance at the moment. So your max encumbrance is equal to your strength score. So he has a max of 50. He currently has 16. But he's basically not wearing any armor. So once I get him a helmet and legs and arms and maybe something a little better than leather, that will go up significantly. It also counts everything he's carrying. So his special abilities are Tough Mind. That's the +2 to his maximum sanity points. Stupid. Roll a d6. On a roll of a 6, he basically misses a turn unless he's frenzied. And then he has perks. These are always in effect, the talents. And then he has 2 perks, which are special abilities that you can spend energy to activate. All characters start with 1 energy, except for the priest starts with 2. His first ability is Frenzy, which allows him to enter a frenzy for 2 turns. He gains 1 additional point of armor piercing. And basically, if he attacks an enemy and hits, he then gets a second attack. And you can attack up to twice per turn. So you can use this, you can activate this ability, then attack, potentially twice. And then on the second turn, if you hit each time, you could attack up 4 times. And then his second ability, this is one that every single character starts with, is Heroic Force of Will, which allows you to add +10 to any stat or skill for any test. So if you really need to pass like a disarm trap test or something like that. He's also carrying an additional torch, and he has 2 rations. And he has a special background. He was an apprentice blacksmith. So basically, whenever he uses an armor repair kit or whetstone to repair his gear, it's normally 1 to 3 points of durability to get restored. He automatically restores 3 points. So that's really good for him. The backgrounds are totally random, so that could have been on a wizard. So that worked out really well. Then we have Henrik, the War Priest. As far as like self-insertion purposes, I'm considering this my main character. And these are my companions as I'm going through it. So he's kind of the leader of my motley crew. He's level 1. Like, again, he has 0 luck. They all have 0. I'll get to that later. Halfling has 1 luck. The other 3 have 0. He has 2 energy. War priests always start with an extra energy point because they use it to power their prayers. So for his stats, he has 44 strength, which is still pretty good, 37 constitution, 40 dex, same as the ogre, 27 wisdom, which is actually really low for a war priest. So his stats weren't perfect for his rolls, but he has kind of higher combat stat. I wanted to go more combat than priestly with this guy. But his resolve is still 45, which is high, and his hit points is 15, which is also really high. So for priests, their prayers are based on their resolve. All right, and then he can equip tier 3 weapons one-handed or tier 4 weapons with 2 hands. The ogre can do both tier 4 weapons one-handed or 2-handed. All right, so my combat skill is 45 chance to hit, with a +5, so it's actually 50, due to a relic that he has, Relic of Olnir on his neck. So it's basically a magic item that war priests start with. You get to pick. There's a few different ones. He also has a 35 range skill, a 45 dodge, 25 pick lock, 17 barter. None of which are particularly important except for the dodge. His heal is a 42, which is pretty good considering his wisdom is only 27. So that's his chance to heal. So that's going to be one of his primary jobs. His alchemy is at 12. His perception's 27. His prayers are at 60. So he has a 60% chance of his prayer going off when he casts it. Still costs him his energy point either way, but not too bad. And a 17 constitution. He is equipped with a broadsword, which does 1d8 plus 2 damage. It's class 3. And he also has a buckler and a padded vest. So the padded vest is similar to a leather vest, just a little weaker. It gives him 2 defense on its torso. And the buckler has a defense of 4. Of course, the way this game works, it's not defending a body part. So what the buckler really does is it allows you to parry with a bonus. So each character gets 2 action points. You can move and attack, or move twice, or attack twice. So one of the other things you can do is attack and then parry. And a parry stance gives a bonus, gives you a plus 15 to your dodge roll if you do it during a parry stance. And then you also get the ability to parry attacks. So you can parry with your shield, getting an additional plus 15 to your parry roll as well. So this will allow him, so by using shields and parry stance, yeah, you can only attack once, but I can also charge him right directly into combat and have him be a pretty effective tank. Is going to be the idea. So he's not going to be much of a damage dealer, but he is going to be a tank and healer is the idea. So he also is equipped with bandages. He's got 1 in his quick slot, and then he's got 2 more in his backpack. And each set of bandages can be used 3 times, or at least for, these are old rags bandages. There's different quality. And I believe they heal, I forgot to write that down. I believe they heal 1d4 hit points, or 1d3. So not a ton. You know, there's not a lot of ways to restore hit points in this other than resting, which comes with its own problems. Let me get that looked up real quick. Bandages. Ration tobacco. Bandages. Yep, 1d4. And then there's second tier bandages are 1d8. And the third tier are 1d10 with a plus 15 to your heal skill. So 1d4. And I can actually use that in combat. So he could potentially heal Hrothgar. He also comes with 2 prayers. He has 15 coins, 20 encumbrance. So he's already up to 20 out of his max of 44. He has 2 prayers, Matthia's Balm. Within the power of Mathia, the priest may heal an adjacent hero with 1d6 plus 1, so 2 to 7 hit points. This prayer can also be used to heal the priest. Once the effect has been resolved, the prayer stops. So that's a healing prayer. And I also have the prayer of Iffy. This empowering psalm strengthens your resolve. The party gets plus 10 resist on any fear or terror test during the battle. If they've already failed these tests, they may retake them with this bonus. So this allows the party to overcome fear tests, and this is a basic heal. These are both level 1 prayers. He has, like I said, 2 more bandages in his backpack, along with 2 rations. He also has the background of Redbeard, so that is a particular dwarven clan that he comes from. Gives him an additional 10 healing skill, which is why he has 42, despite the fact that his wisdom stat is garbage. And then his background is revenge. He hates bandits. And for every 5 killing blows he gets on a bandit, he gets an additional 250 experience, which is also awesome. So he's going to level up a little bit faster than the other ones. And then his talents, he gets Braveheart, plus 1 bonus on fear and terror tests. Awesome. So he's much less likely to be affected by those than anyone else. He gets plus 10 to perception score, which is already factored in. And then he has hatred against goblins and bandits. So he has double hatred, which gives you plus 5 to your combat skill. So a plus 5 chance to hit and a minus 5 to your ability to parry or dodge. So you just kind of, you go overboard when he gets to goblins or bandits. And then he also has the perk Heroic Forceful Will for plus 10 to any test. And that's Henrik. Next we have Alsace, the Ranger, the Elven Ranger. So there's a picture of a wizard here, but at least it's kind of an elf. It's probably a human actually, but they don't have the best artwork, to match up to all the classes. So he's going to start with 32 strength, 30 constitution, 50 dex, 40 wisdom, 40 resolve. And he starts with 12 hit points. He can hold one hand, class tier 2 weapons in one hand and tier 3 weapons in 2. And then his skills ended up with a 55 combat score, which is pretty good, and a 65 range score. So that's his job. He's going to mainly be my primary ranged attacker, dealing damage from afar, backing up Henrik and Hrothgar. And he also has some skills specifically for preventing ambushes and for traveling over the overworld and kind of getting extra rations and stuff like that so you don't starve. He also has a high dodge score at 45. His picklocks is 25, barter is 20, heal is 30, which is almost usable. Almost usable. So if I train that up, that might be something I can get better at. Alchemy's at 20, which I think is the best out of any of my characters, actually. None of them can brew potions or anything like that, but you will roll on your alchemy skill to identify them when you find them. And then his perception's 50, which is really good. So he's got a 50% chance of avoiding traps and things like that. And then foraging 45. So that's also going to be a really good score over the ability over the long term to get that up. All right. And then he's equipped with a longbow, does 1d10 damage, and it has armor piercing of 1, which is pretty cool. So ignores 1 point armor. I didn't buy any armor for him at all, so he's got nothing there. He has 8 points of sanity. I forgot to write that in for these two. He has 10 arrows in his first quick slot. He has a dagger in his second, so in case he gets engaged in melee, he can pull that out. And then he has 3 pieces of beef jerky in his third quick slot, which he can spend an action to eat one and heal 1 hit point. He has the talent Perfect Hearing, which gives so the way initiative works in this game is you basically get tokens for each character and enemy, put them in a bag, and then you draw them out, and that determines whether you go first or the enemy. So the enemy can go 4 times in a row, wipe out your character, or you could go 4 times in a row. It's based on luck. So Perfect Hearing allows the party, after opening a door in a dungeon, to get an additional initiative token. So I'd have 5 instead of 4 on that first round. Also has night vision, gives him plus 10 to his perception roll. But here's the really good one, Observant. So minus 10 risk of ambush. So ambushes are less likely, 10% less likely. And even if I do get ambushed, in the base rules, one character is standing up and everybody else is laying down. Because he has this special rule, all characters start standing up, and the enemies do not get any bonus initiative tokens. So ambush can be pretty bad when the enemies rush in on you, and they may have 7 initiative tokens and you have just your 4, and 3 of your characters are lying on the ground, so they have to spend half their turn just standing up. So this eliminates a lot of that, where the enemy can't just rush you and get right on top of you immediately. He also has the ability Marksman, which means Bloodlust is triggered on a 1 to 10 with ranged attacks. So basically he gets a critical on 1 to 10 instead of 1 to 5. And he also has Heroic Force of Will. He has an additional 20 arrows in his backpack, as well as 2 rations. The dagger I actually moved to his quick slot, so let's get rid of that. And then his background is he has a family keep that was destroyed. I guess I could go through the backgrounds. I'll go through those later, after I introduce them all. Because there's some cool flavor text there. And then here is my Halfling Thief. This is Nebut, the Halfling Thief. You can barely see his artwork on the back. That's not just the camera. You really can barely see it, which is pretty appropriate for a thief, I would say. So he has a single point of luck. So luck is something that you get as you level up, and effectively you can only spend it once per quest. So in between settlement visits, and your luck points allow you to re-roll any roll. So if you get something really bad, you need to make it work, you can spend a luck point and re-roll that. I actually have to look and see if that lets you... you could definitely re-roll like a dodge or a parry, but I'm not sure if you can force an enemy to re-roll their like damage die or something like that, to avoid a death. I'll have to look into that. So for his stats, halflings have very significantly less direct combat stats. So he starts with 25 strength, 25 constitution, but he has 57 dexterity, 46 wisdom, 48 resolve, and he has 11 hit points, which is actually a max roll, or one-off max for a Halfling Thief. He can only equip tier 1 weapons one-handed, which are just tiny weapons like a dagger, I think might be a rapier, a couple other things. And he'd have to use 2 hands to even hold like a short sword, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check the chart. But he starts with really high skills. So his combat skill, his 2-hit, is a 62. His range skill is a 62. His dodge is a 62. But even better, his pick lock is a 67. So 2 out of 3 chance to pick a lock or disarm a trap. His barter is a 46, almost 50%. His heal is 26. It's not horrible. It could be trained up. Alchemy, 16. He's got at least a shot. And his perception's at 56. So, pretty good chance. His forging is only at 5. So, basically a 0. So, his main role is these skills. He's going to be a backup range character. He doesn't have backstab. Rogues get backstab, not thieves. So he's not really going to sneak in and do anything with the dagger, really. That's kind of like desperate. Maybe if he can get a attack from behind or something, I don't know. But it's not going to do any crazy extra damage or anything like that. His main job is to spot traps, disarm traps, unlock doors, and then get me better prices with his barter skill. That's really his job, and to get me better treasures. He likewise is going to start with no armor, and he starts with just a dagger. He has 10 lockpicks in his quick slot, as well as a piece of rope. Rope allows you to, if a character falls into a pit, an adjacent character with a rope can pull them out without them having to pass a dexterity check. So his talents, he is lucky as a halfling, +1 luck, so he starts with 1 luck. Evaluate. A successful barter roll gives a 15% price bonus. It normally gives a 10. So that is really cool. He also has hatred towards minotaurs. That's +5 combat skill, -5 to dodge. And parry. And that is from his background. And he starts with cooking gear, which I believe gives me extra. I should write that down. Extra hit points when I rest or eat a ration or something. There's a lot to this game. Every piece of equipment can add like its own little special rule. And you kind of just have to remember them. Cooking gear. Cooking gear helps make those rations a bit tastier. Rations cooked using this will heal an additional 3 hit points. 1 set of cooking gear is enough for the whole party. Okay, so that means every time I rest, or every day after every time I pass a day, either in the overworld or rest in a dungeon, which already heals you, I think, 1d6, it gives you +3 hit points, so 1d6 +3. So that's really good. You can buy that for half price when you create a halfling character. He also has 3 torches, 2 additional rations. So each character has 2 rations. It gives me 8. You only use 1 every time you rest or pass a day. And he has an additional 5 lockpicks. I don't know why I wrote that in background. I'll fix that later. But one of the unique abilities of a thief is that they, every time you draw a treasure card, they draw 2 cards, and then you get to pick one and discard the other. And then he has revenge for the Minotaur, which gives him a personal quest. Basically, a Minotaur, I'm going to read through those in a second so you can see what those are about, because those are kind of cool. Halflings also have some other limitations. There are, based on the class. So like a barbarian, for example, is limited, I think, to tier 3 armor. They can't wear full plate. I think they can wear chainmail, but they can't wear scale mail or full plate. Halflings can't use longbows. They can't use, large 2-handed weapons, things like that. I think they tier 3 weapons are the highest they can use. That sort of thing. Dwarf War Priest, he can use anything. He's good. I think the Elven Ranger can as well. Armor is limited by armor, so I think he can go up to tier 3 as well. So technically, My War Priest can, if I can get his strength high enough, he can wear the heaviest armor. So that's another reason why he's a tank. So tank DPS, tank healing, range damage, kind of overworld utility, and this is going to be my like dungeon diving. He's spot traps, open doors, disarm traps, all that stuff. And probably a secondary ranged attacker. Like I'll probably end up giving him a sling or something like that. So he can, plink away. All right, so backgrounds. So family keep was for the elf. Generations ago, your family was considered to be amongst the finer families in the kingdom. The king granted your great-grandfather a keep as a token of his status. Sadly, his terrible financial sense and his lust for alcohol, gambling, and general decadence slowly reduced the keep to a shadow of its former glory. Once your great-grandfather passed away, the keep was abandoned and has since been occupied by creatures of the night. Randomize one quest location on the map using the white numbers to situate the ruins of your keep. Although it is far beyond repair, you feel it is your ancestral duty to purge the place of its current occupants. Personal quest. Clear out the keep. Whether you go there as part of another quest or if you decide to go there for the sole purpose, you must clear the entire dungeon. Every tile must be placed on the table and all enemies must be killed. If you go there specifically for this purpose, use the generic dungeon generator to create the dungeon. Once the dungeon is cleared, you gain 1500 XP. Now, if anybody else who's played this game, I have yet to find the generic dungeon generator. Like, the rules for that. I don't understand where I've been looking for that. Where can you just create a random quest? Like, oh, I'm just going to clear this dungeon. And just get loot from whatever you kill. I would love to find that. I can only find the pre-built quests. All right. And over here, we have the Minotaur Revenge. A little over a decade ago, your village was savagely attacked by a large group of beastmen. Although the villagers bravely tried to counter the attack, many were killed and several houses were lost to fire. Amongst the beastmen was a huge minotaur, and it was responsible for the worst of the carnage. You hid throughout the fight, but at one point the beast was close enough for you to make out a strange scar in its chest. The image of that beast has stayed with you ever since, and you have grown to adulthood. Your lust for revenge has grown stronger. You hate minotaurs. In personal quest, every time you fight a minotaur, roll 1d6. And a result of a 1, you recognize the scar. If you defeat the beast, you gain an additional 1000 XP. The Apprentice for Hrothgar. As with most young ones in the kingdom, the time for being a carefree child is short. Most start working before their 10th birthday, and for you there was no difference. Although most children would be toiling in the fields, you were given the chance to work for the local blacksmith. He had grown fond of you as a youngster, and with no children of his own, he suggested you come help him with the more menial tasks. At first, your work was to keep the smithy clean, bring water from the well, and run errands to and from the customers. As you grew older, you began to learn some of the trade. In the end, though, the blacksmith could not afford to pay you a salary that would sustain you, so you decided to find other means of bringing bread to the table. And that allows him to better repair his equipment. And then for the War Priest, Revenge. During the early days of adventuring, you were traveling the roads of one of your childhood friends. Having known each other since you could talk, you had experienced your entire childhood together. Thus, it was quite natural that you would leave your village together in search of fame, glory, and gold. You had been traveling for some weeks, still with no gold or glory in sight, when you were ambushed by 2 brigands. Within seconds, your friend caught an arrow through the throat and collapsed almost instantly. The rest of the fight is blurry, but you managed to overcome and kill both attackers. Although it has been some years since that episode, you sometimes still dream of your friend's last seconds, the shock on his face, and the gurgling sound as the last air passed through his windpipe. You hate all enemies from the bandits and brigands faction. Furthermore, for every 5 enemies from that section where you delivered the killing blow, you gain an additional 250 XP. And that's permanent, and that never goes away. So that's awesome. So basically, my dwarf has a grudge. My half-ogre made sense. The blacksmith was like, you look useful. My ranger, my elf, comes from a family, wealth, and money. And my halfling hid. So like the backgrounds, I rolled them randomly, but they came out perfect. Like it just worked out perfect. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah. So this is my party. Yeah, and I'm gonna start playing. But I just wanted to give you guys an intro video, kind of basics, what this game is, what it's about. There's so much to this. I mean, let me just show you real quick. This is my tray that I'm using to hold some of the cards for the game right now. I don't want to crush my standees. All right. This isn't... So I got all kinds of stuff, right? So traveling in the overworld, you got different random events that can happen. This deck is just for the roads, if you're on a road tile. If you're in the wilderness, it's a completely different deck. It's about 50 cards in that deck. At least 40. This one here is just for mines. This is for this is how you randomize your dungeons. So these give you different rooms. And they tell you what's in them. Right? Here's the different settlement cards. Kind of show you what's going on there. These are different random events that happen in the dungeons. I don't know why that's... Did I put two cards? I must have put two cards in one thing. I'm not sure what that is. I'll figure that out later. I'm pretty sure that's a misprint. But like, for example, treasures. Okay. I have a whole, talk about loot. This is just your mundane treasures, right? And every one of these cards is unique. Here's some bandages, here's some rope, leather armor, coins, empty bottles, parts for potions, dagger, lockpick. So here's bandages, but they're different. 1d3 old rag bandages, 1d2 linen bandages. Those are completely different items. Oh, this one, tells you to draw from a different deck. So even the coins are going to have different dice amounts for how much you roll. So every card in there is actually unique. And then I have another stack for fine treasures, right? Parts, scale mail, studded leather, mithril nuggets, lucky coin, silver clasp, mirror. So that's more advanced stuff. Then you have a whole nother deck over here for wonderful treasures. Huge backpack, Night Stalker armor, magic weapon, mail armor, right? And then if you get something, there's a couple cards in here that will actually give you legendary items. And there's another whole 50 card deck. I got them. These in here are all cards that I'm not really using actively. Yeah. So then there's a legendary item deck. Oh, Gauntlets of Farafnir. These gauntlets grant the wearer 15 strength. That's crazy how good that is. So you have 4 different tiers of cards just for treasures. And on top of that, you can also search a lot of the stuff on the tiles. So if you're in a room, for example, there's the chart. Oh no, can't find it. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. So if you're in a room, there's all kinds of different things you can search. For example, here's a book stand. You roll a d10. On a 1 through 5, you get a grimoire with a random spell. 6 through 10, you get nothing. Or campfire. You can find rations in a campfire. You can find arrows or bolts in an archery target. In an altar, you can find coins or potions. Dead adventurers. There's dining tables, So there's lots of little, and you get to loot enemies. And they can come with equipment as well. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. So I have these 3 treasure types. These are my base dungeons. These are mines and caverns. These are traps. These are road events. But then I have all my monsters. These are desert cards for travel. So they have different ones for that. Which I'm not going to be in a high level area for quite a while. I got legendary items. You get all the monster cards. So, okay, here's an orc and goblin. There's a goblin, and it gives you their stats. 70 XP, and you draw a tier 1 card, which is you roll on a chart, figure out what that is. Mostly monsters. And then I have, spells and things like that at the top. So I don't have a wizard. Higher level prayers. And there's other cards in the expansion box that I'm not using as well. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot to this game. You can even buy dogs. You can have all 4 of your characters buy dogs, which your dogs can then level up and get like stronger bites. You can buy armor for your dogs. There's companions that you can hire. So if you wanted to hire, like if you wanted to have a group, for example, that didn't have a thief, you can do that. And then hire a thief to disarm your traps for you. So you're not, wasting your combat potential, I guess. That is a viable option. Absolutely. I can do that. I can hire a wizard. If there's a quest that requires, something doing magic rituals, or you need a high arcane score to be able to activate runes or something like that, I can hire a wizard and have him come in the dungeon with me. So it's a cool game. There's a lot to it, and I'm really excited to play it. I have not actually played it yet. I've just spent a dozen hours reading the rules. So anyway, if you made it this far, you're amazing. I know I've been rambling. Love you guys. You're the best. Bye-bye.